vintage was a little warm. 2011, why was underrated? I mean, at the end, just because it's coming after 2010. So 2010 was really pump in a certain way. So of course, 2011 was a little bit on the shadow. Was not pumped that way by the critics. I strongly believe that, you know, at the end, the vintage can be amazing, but you never know. I mean, I cannot do it because I'm not an expert. I think that not other people are able to do. You never know what's happening in the bottle.
Do you guys think as sort of a panel that that tends to happen a lot, that there's sort of these shadow vintages? You have a great, awesome vintage, highly rated, you know, followed by another vintage that's actually maybe just as good, but underappreciated and a kind of a good opportunity maybe to
California. Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect example is the '98 vintage in California. I mean, that was bashed pretty heavily, and I think those wines really are turned out to be some of the best values out there, and some of the best wines, far better holding as far as something that we put away in your cellar and something that's going to taste. I think, you know, they overshadow the '97s.
I think there's a lot of, it's hard because a lot of vintage characteristics are generalizations, and so you're trying to do a broad sweep of what a vintage is like without necessarily assessing the individual wines. Right now we're looking at the 2012s. I think it's fantastic that it tastes as 2012, which I think is a incredibly pure wine, maybe not as concentrated as the 11 or 10, but the structure of it it's a delicious, enjoyable, and great expression in Sangiovese. But the 2012s are on the market right now, but very few people have tried them, and people who will invest in them also won't open them for a while. So trying to get a vintage's identity is really tough when you're talking about wines that are this young. And so I think 2010, 2009 have had the opportunity to do that. 2012 hasn't yet. And then you also have the fact that pricing is very reactionary. So if there's an idea that the vintage is going to be great, pricing swells. So, you know, it's a really tough thing to evaluate when you're trying to buy new vintages. And then when you look back and say, okay, well, here's where the quality was, and here's where a wine from a unheralded vintage stands out. It's, you know, it's tough. You put a wine in a bottle, and you really have one chance that year to make a great wine, and it's going to express itself in many different ways for years to come.
And yields were down a bit in 11 compared to 2010, considering people had to work a little harder to make better wine in 11.
Yeah, probably yes. Yeah, probably yeah. That's 11, 10 was absolutely more natural, certain way, totally. Yeah.
Does anyone else feel? Is there any like global? Do you think like 11 globally as a vintage was also falling 2010? so globally 2010
there's a
was
few
just
people that will buy 11s, but I mean, to me, it's always the producer. I mean, there are great producers that will make consistently good wine no matter what Mother Nature gives them, and I think that really makes those producers stand out above and beyond other producers who you know will follow what the critics say.
I think Valencia is a great example because if you're talking about 2010s were so incredibly hyped as the vintage of the century, and prices skyrocketed, and you'll find those wines at a much higher level than the 2011s. But with the kind of producer like that, you're going to get 11s that you'll find for less of a price, but they're intensely satisfying wines.
Absolutely.
Now, that's not to say that, you know, there are vintages that are just disastrous. I mean, 2002 in a lot of Italy and France, and 2011 in a lot of California. That's, you know, you're going to see that throughout. It's not like it can be an excuse, but you know, I certainly think that you know it's worth trying and tasting and experiencing.